Diane Miller. I'm an attorney with National Health Freedom Coalition, which is a 501c3 educational organization, and National Health Freedom Action, which is our lobbying organization. It's a sister organization, and I work for both of them. So I'm here today to talk to you about the laws of healing and also the laws of our body about our right to refuse. So bear with me as Julie is going to take a photo. Are you going to stay for the presentation? Okay, great. So Julie's from our staff. Julie Boris is here, and she's from Massachusetts, and she'll be here with us today too. So first of all, why did you come to hear an attorney? This is a health freedom, it's a health freedom expo and has a lot of holistic. Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. Great. Great. Well, I know we're all learning about ways to get our bodies healthy and our spirits and minds healthy. And this is a great expo. And this is a small group for us to talk about the laws. I'd love to hear why you're here, though. I mean, anybody want to offer why they came to hear about laws? Go ahead, in the back. Your husband passed away during COVID. He passed away last year. And you were locked out? Oh. They would not allow you to go in. And were you allowed once they knew he was going to pass? Were you allowed when he passed? You had. Okay. She's telling a story, and they can't hear you on the tape, and I'm just trying to get what you're saying, but she's talking about not being able to see her husband during the process of dying and what the hospital experience was like. It sounds like it was very abusive. And not being able to discuss treatments with him. Wow. I am so sorry for your loss. Okay, so they failed to give her a nurse liaison that the hospital promised as well. And so, yes, this has, in the last 2.5 years, we have seen confrontations and abandonment of health freedom on so many levels. Having someone pass without the total support and the total options for holistic health that they could consider. It's just like they threw out freedom, and the dominant conventional medical system prevailed in so many ways, in so many instances in people's lives. And so so in the holistic health movement, freedom has been the underlying movement to try and get the word out over the last 30, 40 years. But it has never been to the magnitude of what's happened in our country right now and globally, where they've just kind of taken a swipe at everybody. And in the past, you could, you'd have to fight for your rights. I've been involved in many cases where a parent wanted to do an alternative for a child and couldn't get the second opinion and had child protection step in and stuff like that. That's been happening for a number of years, once in a while, but not massively like the last 3 years. So here we go. So I'm going to talk about today two things. The first part of our conversation, a little bit louder, yeah. They wanted it louder. So the first part of our conversation will be about what I know about the laws for holistic healthcare practitioners so that they can practice without going to jail. And the second part I'm going to talk to you about your right to refuse an unwanted medical procedure. So let's just start with how I started out with the holistic healers information. So these are the two things I'm going to be talking about. And yesterday, if you heard us on the panel, we are a country of laws. We're not a country where the monarch takes over and tells you what to do. But basically, corporations and conventional systems are now acting like as a monarch where you don't have any rights. Well, we go back to try and protect the laws that we put in place in this country. And so I still believe that laws are what this country's founded on, and that that's the voice that we look to. It's not the power structures. So we'll begin with the right to heal yourself and others, the practice of medicine statutes in the states, and the federal laws for dietary supplements and holistic health care. So the first thing you always have to ask yourself, and I didn't know this, even coming out of law school, are you helping someone? How many of you help another person get their health back? All right. So if you are helping someone, you are under the jurisdiction of the state governments. Here's the definition of the practice of medicine in Minnesota. If you offer or undertake to prevent or diagnose, correct, or treat by any means, methods, devices, or instrumentalities any disease, illness, pain, wound, fracture, infirmity, deformity, or defect of any person. That is the definition of the practice of medicine. And guess what? If you do not have a medical license, you could be charged criminally. That's where I started. I was representing a farmer who had given Congressman Bedell milk to cure Lyme disease, and that farmer was charged criminally for practicing medicine without a license. And I'm like, what law would that be? I have to go find the law. What are you saying? What? I couldn't believe it. So you go to this law, and is there a defense to that law? No, there's no defense. You could say, he really helped me, or they really cured me of blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter if they cured you. If you were doing any of those things, you go to jail. So then I was very curious. We passed a law in Minnesota. So then I looked at other states. Here's the state of Washington. Offers or undertake to diagnose, cure, and they even put a physical or mental, real or imaginary, by any means or instrumentalities. That's what the Washington state law of the practice of medicine says. This is the practice of medicine of Maine, relieving in any degree. Practice of Wisconsin, by any means or instrumentalities. Practice of Massachusetts, to encourage the reliance of another person upon an individual's knowledge or skill. Maryland, naturopathy, prevention, diagnosis, treatment of a condition, therapies, substances, material sciences. It's all in the law. They pass these laws, and these are felony laws in Maryland. So if you attempt to practice or offer to practice naturopathic medicine. So Kansas, this one really upsets me. Kansas says, recognizing the practice of the healing arts is a privilege granted by legislative authority and is not a natural right of individuals. You will find this in maybe 2 or 3 other states as well. But when I saw this, I went, this is the core laws that were passed in the last 70 years when we were all sleeping, right? So I'm looking at these laws going, what are we going to do about this? So this is what we designed in Minnesota, the Safe Harbor Practitioner Laws. So these are what our organization, this is a kind of to let you know what we do. We have attorney staff. We research and draft a lot of laws. We do conference calls. If you call us and you want to know what's in your state and what you should do in your state and how to change the law, we do that. We do lobbying training. We have Nate Gorman here, stand up, he is a former lobbyist and he teaches people about how to lobby at their capitals. We do travel and presentations, testimony, and send citizens. So these are just some of the things that our organization has to offer when you call us and you say, oh my goodness, a holistic practitioner, an herbalist got shut down for practicing medicine. What can we do in our state? And I know that there was a years ago in Iowa, there was a naturopath who was giving a lecture, and they were just teaching people about holistic health. And one of the people in the back of the room said, well, I have a child and they have an ear infection. Do you think garlic would help? And the person said, yeah, I think garlic would help. That'd be a good idea because it's an antihistamine and stuff. That person who asked the question was an undercover agent. And the naturopath went to jail for 5 years. So, this has been going on for many years. It wasn't that it was not true. It was anything you do to help prevent, cure, treat a disease. So it is not about whether it works or not. It's just plain illegal. And I was not okay with that. Go ahead.
Would this be acceptable if that person had an article that evidence was presented?
No, it doesn't matter if it was true or not. It just is if you were doing any of those things in the definitions. So, and so if a person, the state of Maine, if you do any of those things, it doesn't matter if it works. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if the person got well. It's just if you were doing those things, you have to have a medical license or it's a crime. Now, in many states, they have a list of exemptions. Oh, well, we didn't mean a medical student, or we didn't mean a federal person that's working for an agency at the vet's hospital. Some say, we didn't mean Christian Scientist, so they have a list of exemptions. We didn't mean family remedies, so depends on what your state has for exemptions. In Iowa, there's a special exemption, and it says, you can't be charged with practicing medicine if you're giving the spring water off of your farm. You can't. It's an exemption. In Massachusetts, you can't be charged with practicing medicine if you're clairvoyant. Yeah. So it depends on the state culture, what is specific to your culture that you don't consider bad, or that you want to be protecting clairvoyants in Massachusetts. Okay. So this is kind of how I got into the whole realm of safe harbor laws. So what we did was in Minnesota, we got a group of us together and we passed an exemption to the practice of medicine statute. We didn't change that definition at all of the practice of medicine. We just said, yeah, but we don't want to include these people. So these are the people in Minnesota that we decided we made a really long list and we said, let's not include any of these people. And we put the words including but not limited to. So we said, if you're not licensed, you're doing all these things. And then we also added a part where as long as you're not doing a prohibited act, which there were 27 paragraphs the legislature came up with, can't puncture the skin, give out controlled substances, call yourself a doctor. Okay, so these are the things that are now protected in Minnesota from needing to have a medical license. In Maine, just recently, they passed this 2 years ago, the right to practice complementary and alternative health care. They went forward. There were 5 homeopaths, and they were worried. They wanted to set up a clinic, and they thought they were going to get shut down for practicing medicine, so we helped them draft a bill. They learned how to lobby, and they passed their own exemption. So this was theirs, and they were successful. So there they are at their capital. They had never lobbied in their life before, and they just did it, and they passed their exemption. There's their prohibited acts. They had to have a list of prohibited acts. Performing surgery, can't do radiation, can't do prescription drugs, can't do a chiropractic adjustment, but everybody else is free to practice there. Nevada, we helped a group in Nevada get their exemption. They have a mandatory homeopathic medical doctor license. So the homeopaths did not get put in the exemption in Nevada because the medical doctors didn't want them to have the right to practice as unlicensed people. But all of these other people can now practice in Nevada. And I put herbalism and herbology in red because the herbalist was the one that helped us pass that bill. New Mexico has a great bill. They have a great exemption bill. We call it the Safe Harbor exemption. And they even put their sobaderos, parteras, medica, and obolares, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but they put their ceremony and song exemptions into their statute. So that reflects their culture. And states are very, very different. They're like people. They're like siblings. You know, they're like, you know how every sibling is different. So Massachusetts went forward this past 2 years, 3 years, and recently, just a few months ago, they did not pass their bill. It was sent to study, and it was pretty much tabled. But they worked really hard on it. There they are at the Capitol learning how to lobby. They really are a committed group of people, Action Massachusetts. And the Wisconsin group, we really helped over, 15 years we've been helping Wisconsin. And so this year, they passed it in the House, they passed it in the Senate. We were all excited. It went to the governor, and the governor vetoed it. So we were pretty unhappy about that. That was a very, it was a political thing because of COVID. You know, the differences between the parties, it became very partisan. It really wasn't about, here we are in the Wisconsin Capitol helping the local people lobby their bill. So this is our website, National Health Freedom Action, and this is just an example of what it would look like. If you go to our website and you want to see what's happening in all the states that we know about, then we send out alerts. Like if Massachusetts is running a bill, we will make an alert so you can automatically send to that Massachusetts legislature and tell them what you want them to do. So this is kind of what it looks like on our website. Let's see, and this is, this is a list of safe harbors that have passed in the last, 20 years. Minnesota was number 1. And this is my handmade, there it is. This is my handmade map. So I know that's kind of weird. But the yellow ones I put on here last night just are states that are getting ready to do something this fall. And to be ready for the January session, because this is in many states, it's a 2-year session. So these yellow ones they have groups that are very interested in doing this. If you're blue, you've already introduced a bill, it has not passed. And there might be a group there might not be a group there. If you're pink, you're considering it. If you're white, we do not have a group there that we're in touch with. And if you're green, you've already passed a bill. So this is just kind of my crazy way of keeping track of my Excel documents so that I can see what's going on quickly. So that is kind of where I entered in. I entered in this with representing this farmer who was shut down for practice of medicine. But then, of course, over the years, I got involved in many issues because I became a national leader on FDA, and we went to Codex United Nations. We have done a lot of things on a lot of different issues because we've been in the field for so long. So when we look at state groups, not federal groups, but state groups, and these different, because I worked so much with the states, I got to know a lot of this other state groups. States are working on practitioner rights, but also vaccine exemption rights, COVID mandates, GMO labeling, electromagnetic frequency, glyphosates, regenerative projects in agriculture. So there's a lot of issues happening on the state level that you can get involved with if you want to, that will impact the health freedom movement. So now we're just going to move to just another specific area of law, because the unlicensed practices was an area of law that I worked a lot in. Now we're going to talk about the right to refuse, or the right to make decisions for your own body. And my question is now, will concentration of power and money and the owners of technology dominate and replace our government? That's basically the question that's at hand right now. And we're seeing how that's playing out and whether the people can stop it. And you're the people, so that's why you're here. So, We're in 2022. A lot of this all started the end of 2019 and 2020. So the mandates are continuing. You should get vaccinated, be tested, social distance, or wear a mask. That's still happening in many different, situations. So the question is, can governor, agencies, or corporations do that to you? Can they ask you to do that? Can they mandate you do that? So I am here to talk to you just an overview of the general concepts of law. There's 4 areas of law. The state constitution that protects your rights, the state statutes or the codes of law, the administrative regulations from agencies, and then the governor executive orders. So here's the Constitution in Minnesota, what it says. Minnesota's government was instituted for the security, benefit, and protection of the people in whom all political power is inherent. Well, wouldn't that be great if that was really upheld in all of these mandates? The state statutes, not the Constitution, but the actual laws that the legislature passed, they actually passed laws that delegated authority to the governors for emergency management. So the legislatures make laws, and they have to be constitutional laws, but they thought that they could make a law that would give the governor more powers to act quickly during an emergency. So here's an example of a law that was passed under the Minnesota Constitution. During a national security emergency declared as existing in blah, 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 the governor may assume direct operational control over all or any part of the emergency management functions within the state. So it gave this one person, the governor, a lot of power. Then after 9/11, they passed very special laws giving governors even more power. This is what they tried to pass, the Model Bioterrorism State Emergency Health Powers Act. And the ACLU was not happy about that when that happened 20 years ago. The ACLU did this. The current draft of the Model Act, unfortunately, is written in a way that doesn't adequately protect citizens against the misuse of tremendous powers that it would grant in an emergency. Because this is 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And then when we saw that bill 20 years ago come forward in Minnesota, and they were trying to pass that bill in Minnesota to give the governor all kinds of power over our bodies and telling doctors what to do and confiscating us. This is what we put in as health freedom advocates. Notwithstanding these laws of an emergency, individuals have a fundamental right to refuse medical treatment, testing, physical or mental examination, vaccination, participation in experimental procedures, collection of specimens, and preventive treatment programs. And we thought that was a really good idea. And we didn't know that other states weren't doing that. But we are the only state with the right to refuse that we know of during the You can imagine the different kinds of laws that were passed during that time. In California, it says, to that end, in an emergency, communicable with these, the department may, if it considers it proper, take possession or control of the body of any living person or the corpse of any diseased person. That is current law in California. So you can imagine if you go into your law in your state, what your state law says. It probably says they can quarantine you, they can do whatever they want during a health emergency. So that law is on the books because you passed it. That's the reality. We passed those laws as state citizens. Our legislatures passed these laws. So when COVID happened, everybody was, how can they do that? And I go, it's the law. I mean, go look at your state laws and see how they can do this. So people started challenging it in court and going, maybe that law was unconstitutional when it was passed 20 years ago. We should check the constitutionality of these laws that were passed. So the Supreme Court of Wisconsin overturned its governor's stay-at-home orders. It said, it is especially in times of emergencies that we must protect the rights of people, lest we establish a dangerous precedent empowering less benevolent government officials in the future to oppress the people in the name of exigency. Oh, wasn't that great? So that law, this court ruling came out. The governor's order was banned in Wisconsin, and a week later he reinstated it. So they'd have to go back to court. I mean, that's how crazy this is. So in Pennsylvania, restrictions on gatherings and closing non-life-sustaining businesses and directing Pennsylvanians to stay at home is unconstitutional. How many of you saw this in the media? The media was not covering any of these. They just kept saying, you have to do it, you have to do it. So this was a Pennsylvania case in 2020. Here's Michigan. The law purports to delegate to the executive branch the legislative powers of state government, including its plenary police powers, and to allow the exercise of such powerful indefinitely, and it's unconstitutional. So this is what happened during these last days. So after 2020, there was a 2021 landscape. All these things continued to happen. The extensions of governor powers, new governor mandates, state departments, all these things continue to happen. Then in 2022, still happening. All these things still happening. Polarization geographically is happening. Censorship by big tech, rallies and protests. So all this is happening, and we're in the middle of it. So in our organization, since we focus on state legislation, we started a project. And one of the founders of this project is here with us today, Julie Boris, yay, from Massachusetts. Yep. Right. So we started the Right to Refuse project. We thought, well, we're good at state law. Let's help the people in their states pass really good laws. So here's a picture of the righttorefuse.org map that we're keeping track of. So on this map, it's an older version of this map, but if you're yellow, you've passed a right to refuse law. So like in Iowa, right away, Iowa passed, you can't mandate a masking of people. That was great. How many of you have right to refuse laws where you can't mandate a vaccine or you can't mandate a mask in your state? Nobody knows. Okay. So yeah, so going to the Right to Refuse website, you will see how this happens. That you'll see, I don't have it with me, but if you go to our booth, righttorefuse.org, you'll see, if you go to your state and click on your state, it'll show you on the left all the organizations working on this in your state, so you can get involved. In the middle, you'll see all the bills going forward that are good bills, no bad bills. And on the right, the bills that have passed. So you can kind of get up to speed and see if there is a bill in your state that has passed. White means there's not been a bill that we know of. Here's an example of a right to refuse bill that the California group of people wrote. It said the government may not infringe upon, put conditions on, or restrict necessary important services or lifestyle choices, not including education, daycare, employment, travel, religion, hobbies, entertainment, sports, and lifestyle, based on your vaccination status or your countermeasure status, whether you're masking or not. So these are citizens writing laws, literally, and putting them into the legislature. Here's another part of their draft, right to refuse countermeasures, what they included in the definition of countermeasures: medical treatments, testing, physical and mental exams, experimental procedures. I mean, these are regular people just writing what they wanted to have put in law, and we were helping them. Massachusetts, here's Julie again. She stood up and said, we're having one in Massachusetts. Let's get going. We can do this as a person. So they drafted this law: a person's fundamental rights to privacy, travel, and speech afforded by the Constitution shall not be infringed upon. So this is what's needed in our country right now. We need citizens who are going to put into words. Here's another: no employer shall terminate the employment of an employee solely based on the employee's engage in medical treatments. These are things that citizens want, and we need them in the law. And we've learned that the hard way. We didn't even know what the laws were saying in this regard. Here's Vermont's right to refuse legislation. Recognize the rights of each individual to bodily autonomy. So we're really helping citizens draft laws that make sense for them. So you could say, in Minnesota, we have a law that says we have the right to refuse, but we didn't think about whether they could coerce you. So now they're saying, yeah, you have the right to refuse, but you can't have an education, and you can't have employment, and you can't have, services. So coercion, so now states are going forward and saying, you can't coerce us either. We have the right, and you can't coerce us out of that right. So that's what's been really great, is to get some of this coercion language in. So the Right to Refuse project, and Julie was the designer of this slide. I love it. Over 2,000 bills were reviewed. So our attorney staff looked at all the bills around the country. We have maybe 80 bills a day that we have to read during session. And out of all those, we looked at 2,000 to see if we wanted to support them. 780 we tracked very closely. 71 bills passed in 27 states. 77 bills were still pending in 10 states about a month ago. So this is all citizen activity. This is regular citizens going to the Capitol saying, please put this in. And what we're doing is we're helping those citizens know how to draft, know how to get in touch with their legislator, anything that you need to make that happen. So the mandates, they continue to challenge these mandates in court. And how many of you have seen big cases won on behalf of citizens in the media? They don't say that. But let me just show you some of the things that are happening. The university in 2020-21, George Mason University reversed its decision denying Todd's Wiki a medical exemption. The New Civil Liberties Alliance sued the institution and they backed off. The Michigan athletes protected against vaccine mandates on September 9th, 2021. They got a preliminary injunction from Western Michigan University. 2021 again, New York healthcare workers protected against vaccine mandates by the U.S. District Court in New York. You will not hear this in the media. January 2022, Illinois court halts mask and vaccine testing rules for schools across the state. March, Washington, D.C. judge protects parents and children. Court halts a D.C. law that allowed 11-year-olds to obtain vaccinations without parental consent. And the power of people going forward, even if you don't pass a positive bill, the one thing that really helps is if you have a good bill in place, even if it doesn't pass, you're getting visible. And the legislators are a little bit hesitant to pass the bad bills. So guess what? In California, of all places, where they're passing really bad bills, the group that went forward to oppose the bill that would make 12-year-olds be able to get any vaccine they wanted without parental permission and to block any access parents had to medical records did not pass 2 months ago. And that was because they were so visible at that Capitol. Even if they didn't pass their positive bill, they had enough visibility that they made legislators a little bit nervous to pass a very bad bill like that. April 22, U.S. District Court, Florida, granted a summary judgment. Mask rule for travelers, commonly known as the mask mandate, is unlawful. May 2022, Alabama sides with the nursing assistant. COVID-19 can be a disability under the ADA. That was a big one. July, Liberty Counsel announces that it has settled our nation's first class-wide lawsuit by healthcare workers for $10.3 million. August, middle, Florida, Marines granted class status and class-wide injunction over denial of religious exemptions. And it was really interesting. In one of these cases, the military let you apply for a religious exemption and then would deny it. And so the judge said, how many have you had for application? And they told him this large number. How many have you given? No, 0. So the judge said, well, that seems a little biased. I'm going to give you 2 weeks to get more data to me. So 2 weeks later, it says the same question. How many did you and how many didn't you? They had agreed to give 7 religious medical exemptions. So then the judge decided you're just plain old biased and we're going to just stop this and you have to give these people religious exemptions. But it's very, very political. So the federal government it's different than the state government, so they have different jurisdictions over things. So I just made a list of ways the federal government is impacting your health. Travel restrictions, interstate commerce, access to products that you might want, that would be a federal issue because it's interstate commerce, individual unemployment relief, financial relief. These are all things that the federal government is impacting on the COVID plane. So thousands of cases are going forward in the courts. So we have the legislative process happening and we have the courts happening. And any way that you can get involved in any of those is great. So we focus on the states, mostly our work is states, unless it is, we are involved in federal issues on homeopathy and FDA drugs and stuff, but in terms of COVID or the mandates, we are sticking with the states for personal liberties. So what you can do in your state: uphold the Constitution. If you think something's unconstitutional, try to resist it. Find like-minded people taking action. How many of you belong to a state group that's working on health freedom issues? Okay, a number of you, great. Yeah, because that's when you find like-minded people, that's what energizes all of us. Decide what you are willing to resist. Are you going to wear your mask into the grocery store, or are you going to say no to a vaccine mandate and keep your children out of school? Those decisions are really the front lines of this whole situation. Support the legal challenges, target the source of declared authority, design a solution for the future, introduce and pass laws and ordinances. And I went to our local school board meeting to resist the mask mandates. And it was so controversial that a man came in, just a citizen, without a mask, to the school board meeting, and he wouldn't leave. So they asked the cops to come in and take this man that had no mask on out. And I didn't want to take, I do not wear a mask anywhere. But at that one, I wanted to testify about masking. So I put the mask on. And so I was like really proud of him. But then they shut down the meeting and said, we're going to wait until he leaves to have the school board meeting. So we all sitting there for 45 minutes. And it was just fascinating to watch my local community and how much courage you have to do these small things. So then I made big signs, and 5 of us went to our town center. It was 30 below, and we were carrying these signs like, no masking mandates, and choice is important, and and people were honking at us. And I'm in a very, I would say, pro-mandate community. So we got a lot of hostility, but we also found new friends. But it was scary. I was like, and this is the front lines of the United States right now. This is what it's going to take to save the concept in our country of personal liberty. And we're on that, like I said yesterday, we're at the crossroads of this time in history. And if we all don't participate, then we're just going to lose what we had. So we're here to support the citizens to put the laws in place that they want to live by, whether it's a practitioner law or whether it's a right to refuse law or any kind of law that you want. We can try and help you because we're all in this together. I always ask, who's representing you? Who are you representing yourself? All of us have to be representing everybody, so get involved. So this is our organization. Our lobbying organization is National Health Freedom Action, and our staff is here to help you, and we don't charge for our services. You just call us up. We're a nonprofit, so we have funders that support our work, and we try to keep those donations coming in so that we can provide a staff that can support you. So we do the work of trying to fundraise, and then we offer services to you free so that there's no barriers between you and getting our services. And our Right to Refuse project is a special project of National Health Freedom Action. So they're the ones that finance the website and everything it takes to keep the research going. And then the coalition, National Health Freedom Coalition, is our educational organization. And we host a national United States Health Freedom Congress every year. We had a hiatus for 3 years, and then we had one 2 weeks ago, where we have all of the groups that we get to know and love come and discuss resolutions. So this is the United States Health Freedom Congress that we had 2 weeks ago, to have people that are running organizations in your states come and talk about their work and give them awards and to pass resolutions so that we can all discuss what's going on around the country. And here's a good picture of all of us at the end. That was a wonderful, wonderful weekend of people on the ground. Now, I have a few minutes left. I have, and you're welcome, if you want to email us and you want these slides, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with you. So feel free to email me if you ever want this PowerPoint. But the principles of health freedom are the basic principles that are in this book that I wrote called Health Freedom, the Greatest Freedom of All. And the national organization does have that book available, but the principles of health freedom are basic principles that we all need to know. You know, let alone to survive on your own terms and in your own manner. Freedom to preserve and act as one wishes to secure your own health and survival. Access to who you want. I mean, you can have, lots of freedom, but if there's only one option and you can't get access to the other 9 options, it's not really a choice. So access to the right people, like those unlicensed herbalists, that's really important to protect access. Do no harm. I know that one. Diversity, tolerate diversity, corporations and institution responsibilities, and then and I'm just going to run through these, and you can get them on your own. The last one is the duty of government to protect health freedom and to make no law or public policy abridging health freedom or its fundamental principles, so that you have the right to make decisions for your own bodies, have access to what you need to make your body healthy, and make those decisions for yourself. So that's what we want. If you don't want to wear a mask and cover up your breathing, you shouldn't have to do that, because your body is a sacred temple. So now I'm open to questions. Thank you for listening. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I went on a tour on Thursday in Evanston, Illinois, of the headquarters of the Christian Women's Temperance Union, which was involved in trying to minimize the harms of alcohol in the family environment. Well, turned out when I went in, I was told I had to wear a mask, and I complied, but I'm wondering what I might have done in that situation.
Well, I'm an attorney, so I have to say I can't give you legal advice. And that is true. So first of all, you'd say no and see what happens. And you might say, oh, okay. What I always do is I say, I'm exempt. And they kind of look at me like, never heard that one before, but okay, fine. And sometimes they bring me a wheelchair. So, they don't, I'm medically exempt. Yeah, I can think of some times where I'd be considered, a trauma victim. So Anyway, so first say no, and see what happens. But that's not a legal advice, no. So if you get in a situation like the woman in the back who talked about her husband, the first thing, get an attorney. Get an attorney, and on the Right to Refuse website, we have a list of attorney organizations that are working for health freedom. Call an attorney as soon as you can if you have any questions at all, so that you can get in there right away with protecting your rights. And if you can't find an attorney, you can call us and we'll help you try to find an attorney. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. I mean, right now, the branches of government, the legislative branch is important, but you're in the middle of a crisis. You're not going to go pass a bill so that you can get in and visit someone. And, you know, the governor's already made his rules. The Constitution is there. So the only other thing is the courts. And attorneys are people who stand in front of judges and get temporary restraining orders and, you know, child protection and everything. So get attorneys whenever you're faced with something very serious. I know it costs money, take a collection, but that's what I always, right now it's really important that we all work together to do what we can, and don't be afraid to see that this is a very serious situation. And I have 1 minute left. You've got it. Yes. What is their next step? So the group in Wisconsin, it passed and then it was vetoed. Their next step is, if you have the same governor, they've decided not to go forward this session if you have the same governor. And they're working really hard to try and get a new governor. Vote for Tim Michaels, he says. Yeah, I mean, literally, you have to make a risk assessment of how you're going to, and you know, whether you have somebody in the governor's office who can convince him not to do it, or maybe go meet with the governor and say, you know, why did you veto this? And he go, oh, I didn't even read it. Oh, yeah, I won't veto it again. You know, you just got to follow up. You just have to keep going. So, thank you so much.